This is fine. Everything is just fine.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the End of the World. I'm Pastor Chris. There's a lot to discuss today, so let's get into it. We've made it halfway through the Discover series, which means you made it halfway through the end of the world, or at the very least, halfway through the book of Revelation. So let's take a moment to review what we've talked about so far. Apocalypse is a Greek word meaning uncovering or unveiling, or maybe even more pointedly, revealing. That is the original intent of this type of genre in Scripture. There is an uncovering, a revealing at the heart of the matter. Think of those earth-shattering moments in our lives. Once the earthquake is done, once the dust settles, once our lives are beginning to take shape, we begin to look around. We pick up the pieces of our lives and find what was hidden underneath the surface. Now, some of those things are things that we haven't dealt with. The pain, the grief, the resentment, or even the downright seriousness of sin and brokenness. But also hidden is the good, God working behind the scenes. And that really is the stuff Scripture is made to do. Plenty of themes are playing throughout Revelation in various symbols to convey this type of apocalypse. But for now, let's just focus on 3 to review. First, let's talk about worship. Revelation doesn't just throw us into the violence and the destruction. In fact, it takes about 4 chapters before any real violent imagery appears. The assumption is that all people worship something or someone. The only question is, do they worship God or evil? The lamb or the beast? The forces that produce life or the powers that align against it? Second, let's discuss conquering. The evil powers conquer by killing and oppression, but Christ and those who follow him conquer by self-sacrifice and resurrection. And our third theme is faithfulness. This theme runs throughout the Scripture in different ways, but suffice it to say that while all the chaotic and oppressive powers that run amok on earth, God's call to Christians is to remain faithful. Will they be faithful or will they compromise? All of this will be discovered more when they dive behind the scenes, that Jesus is there with them. But with all of this, perhaps the biggest takeaway from the first half of Revelation is actually found in the first verse. It's revelation, singular, not plural, of Jesus Christ. That means everything else, the destruction, the chaos, the evil, the violence, the upheaval, it's all secondary to what they reveal about Jesus. It's like that cloth being slowly pulled away. The farther we go, the more we get to see and understand what is being revealed. The slain lamb that conquers through self-sacrifice, that's no small thing, because really at the end of the book, we might not find that the end of the world, but the beginning of hope and peace and new life. There's plenty more that we could discuss, but for today, let's jump into the next section, Revelation 12 through 19. And find out how else Jesus is revealed to us through these scriptures. A woman pictured as a heavenly image. A dragon that will stop at nothing to kill her offspring. Our next section begins with a bit of a whiplash. Not quite the continuation of the trumpets and the end of the world and the witnesses. We are drawn back into this cosmic scene. In fact, that's John's point. There is this cosmic battle behind all of this, with symbols alluding to various moments throughout the biblical narrative. The snake, referred here as the 7-headed dragon, appears to attack the woman and her offspring. Symbols in Revelation give meaning on many different levels. One of the more important ways symbols shows meaning is through echoes. As we are given these signs and symbols, notice how John pulls from stories of the past to talk about his present, and that is all leading to the future. So, for instance, the scene here of the woman and the dragon is based on and echoes Genesis 3. God, having found the man and the woman hiding in the garden after eating the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, curses the snake for its deception. And though the snake is now cursed to slither on its belly, the other half of the curse reads like this: I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will strike your head, and you will strike his heel. From the beginning, we see this struggle playing out between the ancient serpent, God's people, and this struggle between good and evil. Here is one of my favorite pieces of art called Mary and Eve. Grace Remington, a nun from Iowa, drew this scene as she prepared a message to her fellow nuns on Mary. There's Eve grasping the fruit, and she's comforted by Mary. Notice, though, the snake coiled around Eve's leg. Mary's heel has crushed the head of the snake. The woman in Revelation echoes this portrayal. Eve, the mother of all, or Mary, the mother of God, the Messiah, even Israel and God's people, all fighting the dragon, the snake, the devil, evil throughout it, and it's all echoed throughout history. The people of Christ have and will conquer through resisting the way of the dragon. Now, since the dragon cannot catch the woman, the dragon rushes off to attack her children. And there these two giant beasts rise out of the sea and out of the land. They will follow the will of the dragon. The sea creature, like Leviathan of old, rises up to make war on the world and give authority over every tribe and people and language and nation. And then we see this other beast that rises out of the land, the false prophet, the one that tells people to worship the sea beast. Now, both of these beasts are given a nod to the Roman Empire. What is important here is to see how the beast of the sea represents a military power, and the beast of the land represents a cultural and economic power. But both find their power from Satan. The empires of the world and of the day find the ways in which they demand full allegiance to themselves instead of to God, and the more then that they participate in that evil. Of course, the mark of the beast is perhaps the most known symbol of Revelation. As it says, also it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or on the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell who does not have the mark, that is, the name of the beast, or the number of the name. This calls for wisdom. Let anyone with understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a person. Its number is 666. Many people have tried to figure out the mark of the beast, and throughout history you will have people named from emperors to presidents, Hitler to the Pope, each trying to call their enemy the final beast of Revelation and the end of the world as we know it. Although, of course, a word of caution. We cannot fall into the trap of identifying completely who the mark of the beast represents. Many theologians and people have also given the warning that people will do anything to make their enemy the beasts, from changing the name, the title, the spelling, the Greek to the Hebrew, all of this to add up to 666. So what's happening? Who is this 666? Well, many scholars will connect the number 666 to Nero Caesar through Hebrew gematria. That's where you take letters and you assign them numerical values. Before the Arabic system of numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, you would take a letter and assign it a numerical value. So when you take Nero Caesar and you write it in Hebrew, the letters add up to 666. Now, this fits the historical context because Nero became a symbol of brutal persecution against Christians. And after Nero's death, there was this widespread myth that Nero actually didn't die or would return from the dead. So by the time of Emperor Domitian, who was around John's time, um, Domitian had persecuted many Christians and demanded emperor worship, just like Nero. And he was seen as a Nero reborn. That is one legend, of course, but it does likely tap into this fear of Nero coming back from the dead, and Domitian being a part of that system. The fear being that Rome's oppressive power would continue through emperors, and they would never be fully rid of the evils that the emperors were causing. Okay, we've blown through a lot of different things, some heavy hitters when it comes to Revelation. So if you need to now, it's a chance to pause the video, stretch it out, refill on coffee, because for me, our final section today may be the condensed version of what Revelation is about. We've been setting the stage for what's to come, and now John is shown a prostitute riding a dragon. The prostitute is sitting on a seven-headed dragon and drinking the blood of the martyrs. We are told that the symbol is a great city seated on 7 hills, and in fact we've already shown this in week 1, and now this how the symbol describes Rome. The Roman Empire is the world power. All nations from all over the world are flocking to Rome to share its power with hopes that they too will make it rich. But let's stop for a moment. I mean, why Babylon? Why not call it Rome instead of Babylon? Now, for me, this sets up how a lot of the symbols function throughout Revelation. They are echoes throughout history. The Judeans have a collective memory of their time in captivity. It was the Babylonians that had enslaved them, had taken over their home, and oppressed them in a land that was not their own. Babylon becomes a sort of analogy of empires that oppress. Using Babylon instead of Rome does at least 2 things. It keeps it more secret, and it also carries the stories and lessons that they learned throughout the generations of the Babylonian exile. They learned things like how their idolatry and sin led to consequences in captivity, how God is present throughout the whole world and not just in the temple, and even how one could hold on to their faith and be captive to another nation. As Jeremiah says, "But seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare." Babylon in Revelation is Rome, and an angel proclaims its destruction. The kings of the world cry out as the power they receive from the empire is destroyed. The merchants cry out as they lose their source of wealth. And of course, the merchants of the earth weep and mourn for her, since no one will buy their cargo anymore. As it says in Revelation, it's cargo of gold and silver and jewels and pearls and fine linen and purple silk and scarlet and all kinds of scented wood, all articles of ivory, all articles of costly wood, bronze, iron, and marble, cinnamon, spice, incense, myrrh, frankincense, wine, olive oil, choice flour, and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and chariots, slaves, and human lives. This lengthy list of rich goods shows the price at the end: human lives. The power of the empire is built at the expense of human lives, people exploited for wealth, power, and gain. John and Revelation here invite consideration. In what ways do our own systems of power and government here and around the world contribute to this machine, and in what ways will it glorify the new city that will come, that is God's kingdom? Now, the rulers of the world won't have it, though. The dragon prepares an army to conquer once and for all, especially against the faithful. But there in the heavens is Jesus the conqueror. He's on a white horse prepared for battle, and he bears the same image and messages as found at the beginning of the book: flaming eyes, sword tongue, and the rest. But as the battle lines are drawn, we see Jesus' robe is already dipped in blood. The battle hasn't even happened yet. There's no blood spilled, so where's this from? The Lamb conquers before any battle even begins. It's his own blood. It's the blood of the martyrs. Jesus' self-sacrifice defeats the army and death before the war even begins. And that's no small revelation. The blood is not the blood of his enemies, it's his own blood. That's how Jesus conquers. That's how Jesus is victorious. The ultimate victory is Jesus' own death and resurrection. In fact, it's been the message throughout Revelation. Those who remain faithful are those who conquer. Those who conquer are those who stood against the evils of Rome and of other evil empires. There's no decisive battle described. They line up and the battle is won. And that makes sense because Jesus has already won. Jesus wages war through his own death. So if we ask ourselves, what will the end be like, we might start to put the pieces together. It's not a dramatic battle or a place or a thing. It's a person, Jesus Christ. And in the end, we will meet Jesus. Not so much a battle or destruction. It's Jesus that's revealed. So a brief reflection. We have been studying the book of Revelation and have found how it is to uncover more than just the end of the world. And though maybe that's not entirely the case, I think that there is an echo here that John wants us to follow as we read Revelation. Whether you believe Revelation is stuck in the past or more towards the future or a mix of somewhere in between, I think the major push John calls us to look out for is how this happens throughout all times and places. If it's not Rome, it's someone else. They will not be the first, nor will they be the last. And even the most powerful will be defeated by God in the end. And it's probably terrifying because we as humans are creatures of habit. We go back to what we know, what is safe, and what is secure. But there is hope. Because maybe Revelation isn't so much about the end of the world as it's more about the end of the world as we know it. Life is full of ends in the grand scales and the small scales, but revealing Christ in the midst of the brokenness until the fullness of time in history comes through our own faithfulness to the one who is faithful. Naturally, of course, though, more on that in the next episode. So, thanks for coming on this journey. We have met the beasts and we have captured the beasts. And in the next one, we will discover how it all ends. But until then, stay faithful.